So there's still something we have to explain here. Just how did she get in this position? How did she die?
Perhaps the most useful clue lies in the torque, the neck collar found with the body. Torques were very special items of Celtic jewellery, usually worn by warriors and leaders. They were lengths of metal, bent into a circular shape and worn around the neck, with rounded terminals at the front. The Celts would bury treasuries of gold and silver torques as offerings to the gods, such as these from the largest hoard found in Norfolk. Dr. Andrew Fitzpatrick believes that the presence of the torque might cast light on how this woman was regarded by her community.
The way these things were used were to display status, but we also find ordinary people with torques around their necks throughout the Iron Age for a period of 500 years or so. That's quite a long time. It's like almost from the time of Christopher Columbus to the present day. But within that period, the meaning and usage of torques changes. So they start off, I think, as being very high status objects, then they become a bit more mundane, and then later on, I think, they become a sign of a god. So they're obviously something which the Celts felt brought great powers to them. And that may be quite important in trying to understand why the lady who is buried in the settlement just up behind me here had a neck ring. Maybe she was very important and she was very highly regarded in her society.
If torques were associated with status and divinity, was the burial a religious rite? Exactly what kind of importance did the woman have? Her torque was strange, different from others found, made of lead, broken in two, and positioned back to front. Chapman took it to Butser Ancient Farm in Hampshire, an Iron Age working museum, to get some more clues.
Oh, David, there's the torque.
Oh, lovely, yes.
David Freeman has studied Iron Age metallurgy. Perhaps he can help solve the puzzle of why the torque was broken in two and worn backwards.
So there's a number of interesting aspects about the torque. One is, of course, we've got those nice rounded terminals.
Yes.
The decorative pieces, which you'd expect to be at the front.
Yes.
Were actually at the back of the neck as we found the body.
So the torque was actually on backwards?
Yes.
Good heavens.
So, of course, while most of the torque's quite well made, we've got the twisted metal. These ends are quite obviously much more roughly finished. You can see the perforation there. And this side, there's just two notches roughly cut into the metal. So, how do you see that perhaps being fastened?
Well, one assumes if the torque was made in one piece, it may have been a fracture. Lead won't stand too much movement. It may well be an attempt to sort of hold it in one piece. There's possibly a leather thong through there. And if it's laid either side of that one, so you've actually got a loop, and then using the notches there to actually bind it using perhaps a linen thread.
And that would have made, in effect, a leather hinge.
A leather hinge, that's right. I don't suppose we'll ever know, unless we could time travel. That would be very useful. But certainly we can have a look at the object as a working item, and perhaps that will give us some clues.
Yes.
The torque was well made, the terminals neatly finished, and the twist very even. What stands out is the break, and the crude chiselling of the broken ends. Could the break have occurred when making the torque for a particular occasion? Is the rough hinge a quick repair?
I've got some lead tin mix waiting on the fire. Let's fill the mould and then see what happens from there.
Lead occurs naturally in combination with an ore called galena, easily obtainable and easily smeltable, but far less valuable than gold or silver. Perhaps this was the best that people from a simple farming community could afford for their religious rite. Lead would have been shiny when new and a good, cheaper alternative to a precious metal.
And then a nice, gentle pour into the mould so that it fills nice and evenly. It'll change from a silver to a nice grey. There it goes, and then we can just leave it to cool. Well, that's solidified nicely. What I'm going to do is lever it out from the end very gently, lift it without trying to bend it too much.
In Celtic societies, the smith was amongst the most highly honoured of craftsmen. The art of changing dull ore into shiny molten metal, which hardened and could be fashioned, was magical, alchemical, considered a divine art.
Okay, twisting. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use some spanners, and I'm also going to use some pieces of leather in the spanners themselves so that we don't mark the lead any more than we have to. Right, here we go. Oh,
yes.
There we go. Question of whether we can get an even twist. Oh, it's going nicely at this end. Yes, there's a lovely twist developing there, look. But, of course, on yours, we've also got something else which is the rounded ends. And to do that, we need a hammer. Now again, this work hardens it as well, so we've got to be a little bit careful. You see that's beginning to round off. If you take a little bit of time, eventually you will end up with a nice round end on your terminal.
But how did the victim's torque break? Was it deliberate or an accident?
Now the next stage is the most critical of all. What we're going to do now is bend it that way to become torque shape. And what we do is very gently, a little bit at a time. There you go, look.
The position of the fracture in the new torque is remarkably similar to the one in the original.
Now, before that actually drops into two halves, give you a chance to handle it. You can see the problem immediately. Because we've work hardened it, we're already developing a fracture in the middle. But if you would like to just try to bend it very gently, just to take that final fracture out into two halves. It won't take very much pressure, just gently push together. Now it's gone, look. You can turn that over and have a look. There's the fracture, and with very little more effort, gone. It's as simple as that, yeah.
But not quite exactly.
But not
just
quite
like,
exactly.
Just like the one
Just like the original.
So there's our excavated one in its two pieces, and there's the one you've just made
Yes.
in its two pieces after,
That's right.
after breaking.
So the torque, a sacred item, could have been specially made for a religious event and broke in the manufacturing, as this one did. The rough hinge could be a hasty repair done in time for a special event. But what exactly was the event? A murder? A religious ritual? Or the punishment of a witch?